Could green tea be the high performance fuel that is potentially missing from your workday? Today I want to talk about the benefits of adding green tea to your workday, and I also want to share some of my tips and tricks to get the most out of your green tea and to avoid some of the potential pitfalls of green tea as well. So as always, grab your cup of tea and let's dive into it. Every week, I start my YouTube video and my podcast with an invitation to grab a cup of tea. And this isn't just a manufactured part of my personal brand. For me, there is not enough hours in the day to drink the amount of tea that I would like to. I have loved tea, especially green tea, since I was a teenager. And everyone that knows me personally and professionally know that tea is always my signature drink of choice, especially green tea. When I used to work in a corporate office, I even had a drawer that was dedicated entirely to tea. And I had about 20 different teas in there, and I would go through them in my workday. And I even had people visit me just to explore my tea drawer. And I am certainly not alone when it comes to my love of tea. Tea is said to be the second most consumed drink in the world, and it is behind only water. The green tea industry is said to be evaluated at approximately $14.8 billion, and this is estimated to grow to around $29.3 billion by the year 2030. Despite this universal love of tea, it feels to me like coffee culture seems to dominate the corporate sphere. Just think about the way that we talk about our morning coffees or coffee runs or catching up over coffee. Realistically, the old traditional water cooler talk feels to me like it's been replaced by the coffee machine chats instead. Although I do think that Gen Z have slightly different ideas about this, which I'll get to in a minute as well. Green tea is said to have a huge amount of benefits, and this includes things like reducing inflammation in your body or helping with weight loss. But the ones that I really want to talk about today are the things that I think benefit your workday more than anything. So I want to share what those top 3 things are. Green tea is tea that hasn't gone through the same withering and oxidization processes as black teas, which means that it is said to contain a lot more of the nutrients that the plant that tea comes from is able to provide. If you aren't aware already, there is a matcha craze that seems to be sweeping influencer culture, and I'm all for it because it means that Gen Z are setting what I think is a really positive example for the next generation and their drinking habits. There are many different types of green teas, and matcha is a type of green tea, and it is said to be one of the healthiest types of green tea because it is derived from a powder form, which means that it contains a lot of the nutrients that the green tea is able to provide in a more concentrated form. It also comes from the youngest parts of the green tea plant, which is what contributes to its nutritional value and gives matcha tea in particular that really vibrant green color. My first tip is to drink away depression. I know that this is something that a lot of people suffer with, and I am by no means a doctor or a professional in this space at all. But from some of the information that I have found, green tea is said to been found to, in some studies, reduce depression by 21% when participants were having just 3 cups a week. There were other studies that showed that if participants were having 4 cups of green tea a day, they were able to reduce their depression by 51%. Much of the mood-lifting qualities of green tea come back to the presence of caffeine, and something else which I'll talk about more in the next tip. So green tea actually does still contain caffeine, but it contains it in smaller doses compared to its coffee counterparts. So green tea is said to contain roughly about 29 milligrams of caffeine per cup, while a cup of coffee is said to contain 96 milligrams of caffeine. So you are able to get a lot of the benefits that are associated with caffeine, but in smaller doses compared to when you are drinking coffee during your workday. Tip number 2 is to use green tea to sip away your stress. The green goodness of tea is said to help reduce stress, and this has something to do with something that it contains called L-theanine. Green tea is said to reduce some of the cortisol production in your body, and because it is what is called an adaptogen, it helps to regulate some of your psychological processes. So you can use green tea to feel stimulated when you need to, or you can use it to feel calm and composed whenever the situation calls for it. Either way, you're going to have your co-workers green with envy over your ability to manage your mood. Tip number 3 is to use green tea to boost your brain. There have been some studies that have showed that green tea may be able to reduce cognitive impairment in middle-aged and older people. Some studies have also claimed that green tea is able to help to reduce some of the risk associated with dementia and Alzheimer's. So use green tea to boost your cognitive brain functions even as you age. So now I want to get into my tips for drinking green tea. Just like with all good things, you do need to still indulge thoughtfully when it comes to green tea. And it's personally taken me a while to be able to reach this point and to start to research some of these things a little bit more instead of just actually drinking green tea all day as I normally would be. So my first tip is to time your green tea. You have to remember, as I mentioned before, that green tea does contain caffeine. And like with all things that contain caffeine, it is something that you do need to be cautious about in some way. So I personally choose to not drink green tea in the morning as soon as I wake up anymore. I wait a couple of hours. And that has a lot to do with a lot of advice around waiting a couple of hours after you wake up before you consume any caffeine at all. And this is to help to allow your body to go through some of its natural processes that it normally does when you wake up. When you wake up, you are said to have a natural cortisol spike that helps you to get started. It helps you to wake up and start your day. So when you add caffeine on top of that, you are potentially disrupting some of that natural process. And because of the spike that you are artificially giving yourself at that time, it can also disrupt your ability to get the most out of what green tea can normally offer you if you were to have your cups of green tea at a better time of the day. So by having your green tea and any caffeine too early, you could be training your body to become resistant to the benefits of green tea when you have it at a different time. So because of this presence of caffeine, which I'm now a lot more cautious of, I try and switch to non-caffeinated drinks at about 3 to 4 in the afternoon. But I absolutely love a tea or a hot beverage all day, every day. But I just use the times that I feel like I shouldn't be drinking green tea to enjoy some of my other favorite teas or drinks in that time as well. So this might be things like a hot lemon water drink in the morning. Maybe it's a turmeric and cinnamon drink. And in the evening especially, I like to have a peppermint tea or a chamomile tea or even a rooibos tea. And all of those things I believe don't contain any caffeine. The next tip for drinking green tea is to consider adding 4 cups of consistent green tea to your day. And that relates back to the first tip that I shared about green tea's ability to reduce depression, but also just about the health benefits of green tea in general. I often feel like there are a lot of people that love green tea, but perhaps don't drink it consistently. For me, I just love that Chinese medicine has been using green tea for thousands of years, so it feels like the right thing to have as a consistent part of my routine. My next tip for drinking your green tea is to pay attention to the source. China, for example, is said to produce about 70% of the world's tea. So, of course, when you have a quantity that is that high, the quality in that amount of tea is going to vary. There are going to be some producers that have a really good, exceptional quality, but there's also going to be some producers that have a lower quality, simply because the quantity is bigger. So pay attention to the source if you want to help to reduce some of the heavy metals and the pesticides that green tea can also contain. Japanese brands, for example, make up a much smaller proportion of the overall global tea market. However, because of this, it is said to be more premium products that tend to be available in the global market. So when you are shopping around for your teas, consider the source to help you to reduce some of the potential negative effects that your tea might have. So if you haven't yet made the switch, consider going green with your green tea. Subscribe for more like this, and I'll see you in the next episode.